1 month after a disappointing '98 season, the Wizards shipped Chris Webber and his legal troubles to Sacramento for Mitch Richmond and Otis Thorpe. This was one way to look at the trade. But there was another way, too. Mainly, the Kings might have just pulled something off. At the expense of Wizards fans. I did not write this Reddit post, but as a DC suburb native of a certain age that I'm not going to reveal, it is almost exactly my experience. With one trade, Washington not only stomped their first glimpse of relevancy since the 1970s, sending themselves back into the depths of the league for years and years and years, but they also created a new Western Conference title contender that rivaled the Kobe Shaq Lakers. In other words, the Wizards' trade of young for old, of big for small, of Chris Webber for Mitch Richmond was a big deal. The Secret Base Patreon has bonus stuff every Monday, so if you like stuff that's fun and cool and interesting and maybe a little weird, might be worth checking out. Alright, back to the action. After the 97-98 season, the Wizards had a problem. Many problems. Partly because 1 year prior, they were on top of the world. The height of the world is a sliding scale when you haven't seen the playoffs in 9 years and haven't been over 500 in 10 years. So yeah, a playoff berth where you're swept but only lost Game 3 by 1 point, and by the way, you're playing the defending champion Bulls, was the top of the world. Didn't hurt that Michael Jordan was impressed. The Wizards' big three was the engine. There was speedy Rod Strickland, unbelievable off the dribble. Juwan Howard, an all-star in '96, a reliable scorer, a cornerstone of the front court, along with... there he is, Chris Webber. Washington's sole all-star of '97, he led the team in scoring and rebounding. A big man who could pass with finesse, post up or handle the ball, so quick he averaged as many steals as his point guard. With a new name, a new stadium, and a new trajectory, the Wizards were ready to take a huge step forward in the 97-98 season. Oops, step backwards, the new name is stupid. Oops, bigger step backwards, no All-Stars this year. Oops, guys, you're running backwards, actually. What happened? Well, 7'7" center George Mirasan was out all season because he got hurt filming a movie called My Giant. Unfortunate, and also embarrassing. But wait, there's more. Teammates fighting. Required stitches, did it? Great optics. The team needed some leadership. So how about the leading scorer, leading rebounder be the leader? Only looks at his own stats. Okay, perhaps he's not interested in the role. Anybody else? Careful guys, you don't want to make a pattern out of off-court trouble because management might, get super pissed. Because see, Rod Strickland wasn't the first on the team with a DUI. Juwan Howard was charged in '96, and... wait. Oh my god. Could that be why they changed their name from the Bullets to the Wizards? Like, I know Howard didn't do anything with guns or whatever, but it's still like, we love the law, forget what he did, look over here, we're casting spells, moons and stars, hooray! Ooh, uh-oh. Pulled over for speeding ever so slightly on his way to practice, cops found less than half a joint in Webber's car, and then the face of the franchise got pepper sprayed because he allegedly assaulted a police officer. PR-wise, not ideal. Actually, anything-wise, not ideal. Oh, 6th highest payroll. Good. That's probably not something management mumbled to themselves as they read the previous headline. How many playoff spots are there? 8? Seems like we should have gotten one. It's actually 16 if you count the whole league, which you are when you say 6th highest payroll. That's a bad one. Like, on a human level, this fucking sucks. And it was kind of the nail in the coffin for the hopes and dreams of the Howard Webber Wizards' rise from the graveyard. I think it's important to say off the bat that a grand jury investigation found that no charges should be brought and this case was closed without prosecution. However, that conclusion wasn't reached instantly. And owner Abe Pollin and GM Wes Unseld didn't want to wait around and see how big their problem really was before they started solving it. Pollin in particular was eager to act quickly, and that act was going to be trading Chris Webber. Everyone knew DC was likely to break up Juwan Howard and Webber. They'd been together in college as part of Michigan's Fab Five, and reuniting on the Wizards was supposed to bring more success than off-court embarrassment. The legal run-ins were an issue, but there were also basketball reasons to break up the duo. For example, they were both power forwards. When Weber was hurt in '96, Howard got to play power forward all season, and it worked out pretty well for him. So if Weber was gone, could Howard return to all-star form? And look, while they had that one promising year, if you remove the sliding scale of Washington's success, having two highly paid guys for 4 years and never winning a playoff game is not ideal. Even Howard knew the writing was on the wall. One of them was leaving. And it wasn't going to be Howard, who had a massive, untradeable contract. Now, you might be thinking, why don't they just trade him for a different massive contract guy? And if that's what you're thinking, you might be well suited for a career in late 90s basketball journalism, because there was chatter about the Wizards doing exactly that. David Robinson's name was floated in the press. He was expensive. And maybe San Antonio didn't want him after rookie Tim Duncan's impressive debut. Plus, the Admiral was 33 and he had a bad back. Now, of course, we know that trade didn't happen, perhaps because the Spurs knew they could use both big men effectively, or perhaps because they didn't see the value in trading an 8-time All-Star for a 1-time All-Star with a drunk driving arrest and 0 playoff wins. Was using this picture too mean? I'll change it. Howard was untradeable because he had a massive contract and he didn't deserve a massive contract. So it had to be Weber who left. But did Weber's replacement have to be Mitch Richmond? Look, the guy had been quite good earlier in the decade, but he was about to be 33 when DC got him. And spoiler alert for something that happened decades ago, he was not one of those guys who could defy age. So who else was out there? Latrell Sprewell said he wanted to play in DC just a few months prior. Oh, that's because he wanted to play with Chris Webber again. And considering some unpleasantness in December, it's possible he would not do wonders for the Wizards' image, nor provide the leadership they needed. There were rumors of Webber for Penny Hardaway, two guys who'd actually been traded for each other before, and also Webber for Grant Hill, who was from the DC area. But little birdies can be wrong. They're dealing with a pretty steep language barrier. There wasn't a lot of reporting on options other than the Richmond trade, because the Richmond trade happened really fast, just a month after the Wizards' season ended. So maybe there would have been a better deal if Abe Pollin had waited a bit before pulling the trigger. Oops, sorry, I said trigger. I mean, before he waved the magic sparkle trade wand. Now, after the Weber-Richmond trade went through, we heard about some other options and got to imagine an alternate timeline to the life we live. This trade potentially had a lot of benefits for both sides. Let's discuss. The Lakers used Campbell alongside Shaq, but the guy was a true center. Hey, that's exactly what Washington needed ever since George Mirasan got hurt filming a movie. Well, hurt himself not wearing his orthotics while filming a movie. My God, can we buy a non-embarrassing moment? DC had even expressed interest in Campbell earlier that year. There had been Howard for Campbell talk back at the February trade deadline. But that didn't happen, in part because everyone still believed in the Weber-Howard combo. Man, that trade would have preempted the sexual assault complaint, maybe helped the Wizards win some games, maybe saved us all. But it's not what happened. Let's stay on track, imagining a different alternate world that Wizards fans can only dream of. Also in this world, I'm a millionaire somehow. If we're dreaming, why not dream? Nobody knows how the butterfly effect works, not even Ashton Kutcher. Where was I? Right. Eddie Jones, a shooting guard. So Lakers won't be needing him much longer. And the Wizards don't need their disappointing former 6th overall pick now. Sorry, Calbert Chaney. You were really good at not getting into PR trouble, though, to be fair. Nick Van Exel was a great point guard, but maybe LA would ship him to free up more touches for Kobe. Why would the Wizards need a great point guard? They already had one. Well, Strickland was 32 and Van Exel was 26, and why not have lots of good players? That sounds great, doesn't sound like a major problem to me. So this alternate reality trade looks great. Why aren't we living it? Could have been a million reasons, but Weber had a simple theory. Spite. And off to the Sacramento Kings he went. In the summer of '98, Sacramento had been so bad for so long they were likened to jail and/or jail-adjacent entities. And hey, Mitch Richmond proved to be a disappointing replacement, but in the summer of '98, he had some plus sides, especially if he couldn't see the future. He was coming off his 6th consecutive All-Star appearance. He finished 15th in MVP voting. But even without fortune-telling abilities, you could have predicted that the Wizards were kind of fucking their future because DC had given up 3 first-round draft picks to get Weber in the first place. So even if Richmond hadn't gone all grandpa on us out of the gate, he would have eventually, and the Wizards had no easy way to add young talent for that eventuality. In the immediate aftermath, Wes Unseld was like, I get how this trade looks bad. But Washington was desperate for maturity and leadership, so that was that. Also, as a side note, look at this ad for a knife and gun show with a door prize of a rifle. Is this ad placement teasing Wizards fans? Like, haha, your team sucks and the rest of the country gets to talk about bullets but not you? For the record, I'm anti-gun but pro my team being called the Bullets. In his first season as a Wizard, Richmond began his descent. Juwan Howard did not return to all-star form even though he was in his natural power forward spot, and I guess the team was more mature. But all that did was take away an excuse for their abysmal performance. That summer, Washington both drafted a promising young two-guard and made Richmond the highest-paid two-guard in the league. Kobe, Reggie, Ray Allen, try putting up a career-worst shooting percentage and maybe you too can secure such a bag. Oh, the Wizards also traded away Ben Wallace that summer. When researching this story, it was around this point that I simply Googled, when the hell was Wes Unseld fired? Only to learn he was never fired. He retired of his own accord in 2003, because owner Abe Pollin was a uniquely loyal guy. In the world of the cutthroat in-it-to-win-it NBA, Abe Pollin was a decent man. Isn't that nice? I'm being salty, but look, I have reasons. The Wizards eventually paid Richmond $10 million to go away. They bought out his contract. Meanwhile, Chris Webber flourished in Sacramento, making a super team, albeit a temporary one, out of a perpetual league bottom dweller. Exactly what he was supposed to do in Washington. But outside of a DC perspective, this is a pretty happy ending. It's not often a team goes from the Siberia of the NBA to the conference finals in just 4 years. It's even happy for Mitch Richmond, who had a deep bench role on the Laker team that beat Weber's Kings in the 2002 Western Conference Finals and then won it all. And honestly, even from my perspective, there's a happy ending angle. I was in middle school when all this went down. Don't do the math to figure out my age. That's not fair. And middle school is a time notorious for sapping the self-confidence of young women. But you know what's good for a preteen's confidence? Being like, wow, I'm smarter than an owner and a GM. Thanks to our patrons, thanks to everyone for watching. We got a little personal with this one, gave you a little glimpse into my childhood. Hope it wasn't TMI, as they say. Alright, stick around, watch some videos, subscribe, check out the Patreon. I'll see you soon. For Secret Base, I'm Clara Morris. Good night and good game.